Hello everyone and welcome back to our Shir and Dishu Bahalacha. I'm fresh back from Cleveland. Today was a travel day, so if I fall asleep in the middle you'll know why. I'm going to try to make it a little bit abbreviated, but I did want to make sure to post a shir today and try to cover a page. So we're holding on Reish Nun Amid Aleph. We're in Siman Shin Pei Beis. We're on the bottom line of Reish Nun Amid Aleph in Shin Pei Beis Sif Gimel. Says the Mechaber, Im ein le'eno Yehudi drisas haregel al hayisraelim. If we have a case where we have a non-Jew living in one chutzner, and we have Jewish people living in an adjoining chutzner, but it's a situation where the non-Jew does not have a drisas haregel, he doesn't have a rite of passage, or a required rite of passage, through the Jew's chutzner. Einay oiser, he does not aser on the Yidden that live in the other chutzner. Now don't get scared, we're going to discuss the case right now. Kegoin, for example, says the Mechaber, Shtei chatzeros hapsuchos zu lezu. You have two adjoining chatzeros that are right next to each other, and they open up one onto the other. So if you have chutzner A and you have chutzner B, there's a dividing wall between them, but there's a doorway or a window that opens from one chutzner to the other. But ve'ein lehem drisas regel zal zeh. However, you're talking about a case where there are two adjoining chatzeros, and each one of the chatzeros has its own doorway, either to the Rishus HaRabim or to the Mavui. So this is not a case where one chutzner is behind or inside of the other chutzner, and you have to walk from chutzner A through chutzner B to get to the Mavui or to the Rishus HaRabim. Instead, this is a normal case. You have two chatzeros next to each other, and chutzner A has its doorway onto the Rishus HaRabim or the Mavui, and chutzner B has its doorway onto the Rishus HaRabim or the Mavui. Excuse me. There's also a doorway between them, so you can go from chutzner A to chutzner B. But you don't have to walk one through the other to get out to the Rishus HaRabim. So therefore the Mechaber says, Ein lehem drisas regel zal zeh. There's no required rite of passage one through the other. Chutzner A does not have to go through chutzner B to get to the Rishus HaRabim, and chutzner B does not have to go through chutzner A to get to the Rishus HaRabim. Ubechatzer echad dar eina Yehudi. Let's say in chutzner B there's a non-Jew living in that chutzner. Ubechatzer acher, and in chutzner A darim shnei Yisraelim o yoser. In chutzner A you have two or more Yiddish households. Still, the halacha is machnisin umaytziin mechatzer zu lechatzer zu b'Shabbos. You're allowed to take kelim sheshavsu babayis. Let's say the Yidden that are in chutzner A, they have a lawn chair that started out Shabbos in their house, and for whatever reason they want to bring it from their house in chutzner A to the yard in chutzner B on Shabbos. They're allowed to derech haloin shebeneim, by going through the window that's between the two chatzeros, or through the doorway that's between the two chatzeros. Ve'ein tzrichin liskar me'eina Yehudi, and they don't have to be maskir rishus from the non-Jew who lives in chutzner B. So just to fix this in our minds, what the Mechaber is saying ultimately is very simple. Normally, whenever you have two adjoining chatzeros with a doorway in between them, so let's say you have chutzner A has 5 Yiddish households in it, chutzner B has 5 Yiddish households in it. If you want to carry a keli sheshavas babayis from chutzner A to the chutzner in chutzner B, or vice versa, so the two chatzeros have to join in a common eruva chatzeros. If not, the residents of chutzner A and the residents of chutzner B aser on each other. Over here, it's the same situation. You have two adjoining chatzeros. In one chutzner, in chutzner A, you have 2 or more Yiddish households. In chutzner B, you have a goy. Over here, we do not say that the goy asers on the Yidden, and they do not need an eruv, and the Yidden in chutzner A do not have to be maskir rishus from the goy in chutzner B. That's the halacha that the Mechaber is saying, and we'll discuss it now in the Mishnah Berurah why this is the case. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Cotton Yud Daled on Reish Nun Amid Beis, Hapsuchos zu lezu. You have these two adjoining chatzeros, and they open up one onto the other, b'chaloin, with a window, or b'pesach, or with a doorway. Ve'ein lahem drisas regel. But there is no rite of passage one through the other. Like we explained, what the Mechaber is telling you is, this is not a case where the guy who lives, let's say, in Chatzar B, has to walk through Chatzar A, has to walk through the Yiddish Chatzar in order to get out to the Rosh Hashanah. That's not the case over here. Over here, the non-Jew who lives in Chatzar B has his own doorway from Chatzar B out to the Rosh Hashanah. We're not talking about a case where one chutzner is situated behind the other chutzner. It's one chutzner next to the other chutzner, both of them fronting onto the Rosh Hashanah or the Mavli. And each one of them has its own doorway out to the Mavli. What the Mechaber means to say is, the Yidden who live in Chatzar A, they're allowed to take a Keli Shashavas Babayis, something that started out Shabbos, in the house in Chatzar A. They're allowed to take that object and they're allowed to bring it over to Chatzar B. Obviously, we have to be talking about a case where all of the Yiddish households in Chatzar A joined in their own Eruvei Chatzeros. If the Yiddish residents of Chatzar A did not make their own Eruvei Chatzeros, then they're not allowed to take a Keli Shashavas Babayis from their own house in Chatzar A to the Chatzar of Chatzar A. So obviously, the Mechaber is talking about a case here where the 5 Yiddish households in Chatzar A, they made an Eruvei Chatzeros in Chatzar A. So in Chatzar A, they're allowed to take their lawn chairs out from their houses and bring it into their Chatzar. Now the Mechaber is telling me they're also allowed to take that lawn chair and bring it into the Chatzar of Chatzar B, because in Chatzar B there's an Eino Yehudi, and that Eino Yehudi, that non-Jew, does not aser on the residents of Chatzar A. They could do this by going through the window. Even if the window that opens up between Chatzar A and Chatzar B is lower than 10 Tfachim, so it's a bona fide Pesach. It really constitutes an opening between the two Chatzeros that would allow for an Eruvei Chatzeros between the two Chatzeros. Still, the non-Jew in Chatzar B does not ask on Chatzar A. If there would be a full-fledged doorway, still the Eino Yehudi in Chatzar B does not aser on the residents of Chatzar A, and the residents of Chatzar A would be allowed to carry through that doorway into Chatzar B. Shebeinei anois katan yudches ulahoitzi mechatzeram lechatzar ha'akum derech hamavui kishu musukan belechi v'kara kadin. Let's say another question. The question now is like this. You have Chatzar A and Chatzar B are next to each other. There's a doorway that opens up from Chatzar A to Chatzar B. Chatzar A and Chatzar B have their own doorways out to the Mavui. Now, what the residents of Chatzar A want to do is, they want to take a lawn chair from one of their houses, they want to go out their doorway into the Mavui, and now they want to walk through the Mavui, and they want to go from the Mavui into Chatzar B. Are they allowed to do that? So says the Mishnah Berurah like this. That din, talui bazeh, that would be dependent on the following variables. So first, the Mishnah Berurah said in the brackets over here, kishehu mesukan belechi v'kara kadin. Obviously, the first thing that you need is that the mavui has to be mesukan. The mavui has to be fixed with a lechi or a kara. Because remember what we learned previously. You're not allowed to be metaltal. You're not allowed to carry in a mavui. What's the mavui? You have the chatzeros open up onto a mavui, open up onto an alleyway that's closed on 3 sides. And at the front open side, the mavui opens up onto a Rosh Hashanah. When you have a mavui that opens up onto a Rosh Hashanah, even though midaraisa you're allowed to carry in that mavui, because midaraisa the mavui is considered a Rosh Hashanah because it has walls on 3 sides. But since it opens up on the open side to the Rosh Hashanah, the halacha is you're not allowed to carry in that mavui unless there's a kaira, a beam going over the opening where it opens up onto Rosh Hashanah, or a lechi. There has to be a side post on one side of that opening. So assuming that this mavui is mesukan kedin with a lechi or a kaira, totally bazeh. The shaila of whether or not you're allowed to go from the Yiddish chatzar in Chatzar A go out to the mavli, carry something out to the mavli, and then take it from the mavli to the goyish chatzar of chatzar B, that would be totally, that would be dependent on the following variables. Im lo haya b'mavli zeh rak chatzar echad shel Yisrael, if opening up onto this mavli, you only have one chatzar that has Yiddish households in it, and then you have another chatzar, or more than one chatzar, with goyish households, but you only have one chatzar that has Yiddish households in it, mutter, then it's going to be mutter to go from the Yiddish chatzar into the mavli to the goyish chatzar. But if you have two chatzeros opening up onto this mavli that have Yiddish households, then aser. Then it's going to be aser to go from either one of the Yiddish chatzeros out into the mavli, and then from the mavli into a non-Jewish chatzar. Because in that case, the Goyish people who live in the Goyish chatzeros are going to aser on the Yiddish chatzeros until the Yidden are maskir rishus from the non-Jew. What's at work over here is very simple. Let's remember what we said previously. We said that if you have Yiddish residents in a chatzar together with non-Jewish residents in the same chatzar, what's the halacha? The non-Jew does not aser on the Jew until there are at least two Jewish households. If you have one Yiddish household and one Goyish household in a chatzar, the Goy does not aser on the Yid. If you have one Yiddish household in the chatzar and you have 5 Goyish households in the chatzar, the Goyim do not aser on the Yid, because we say that that's not shchiach. It's not commonplace for a Yid to live alone amongst Goyim, because the Goyim are chosher ashvichas damim. So the Chazal were not misakin in that case that you have to be maskerishos from the Goy. So just like in a chatzar, we say that the non-Jew does not aser on the Jew unless there's at least 2 Jewish households. So too by a mavli. What's a mavli? A mavli is the alleyway that has multiple chatzeros opening onto it. The same way by a chatzar, the Goyish residents, the Goyish households of the chatzar, do not aser on the Yiddish households until there's at least 2 Yiddish households. So too by a mavli, the Goyish chatzeros do not aser on the Yiddish chatzeros until there are at least 2 Yiddish chatzeros. And we will discuss that weiter in Siman Shin Tzadik Aleph. Mirza Hashem, we should all get there in good health. Says the Mishnah Berurah weiter as cut Yud Tes. Vein tzrichen liskar min anachri. The Yidden do not have to be maskir rishus from the Goy. So if the Goy is living in one chatzar and the Yidden are living in another adjoining chatzar, and the Goy does not have a rite of passage over the Yiddish chatzar because he doesn't have to walk through the Yiddish chatzar to get to the Rishus HaRabim, then the halacha is ein tzrichin liskar min anachri. Says the Mishnah Berurah v'atam. The reason for this halacha is the lo yitzrichu chachamim liskar elahechi shedarim b'chatzar echad. The Chazal did not make this takana that you have to be maskir rishus from the Goy unless the Goyim and the Yidden are living together in one chatzar. Oy b'shtei chatzeros, or if they're living in 2 separate chatzeros, but v'hayuzu lifnim mizu, but one is behind the other in such a way sheha'akim oiver derech hachitzayna, so that the guy lives in the inside chatzar and he has a drisas haregel, he has to walk through the Yiddish chatzar to get to the Rishus HaRabim. Sheha'Yisraelim darim sham, in the outside chatzar where the Yidden live, because that again is as if the Goyim and the Yid live together. If the guy lives in a chatzar that's behind the Yiddish chatzar, so the guy always has to walk through the Yiddish chatzar to get to the Rishus HaRabim, then we look at it as if they live in one chatzar. As like we always said, when somebody has a drisas haregel through an outside chatzar, he's like a quasi-resident of the outside chatzar. So over here we're going to look at the guy as being a quasi-resident of the Yiddish outside chatzar, and then he would aser. The chamavur lekaman b'Sif Yod Zayin, like we're going to see later on in Sif Yod Zayin. Masha'enke mishtei chatzeros. But when it's two totally separate chatzeros, she'en lehem shayches b'hadei adodi, when they have no shayches one to the other, they just happen to be adjoining one to the other. Af shemoitziu machnis lepa'amim derech haloinoi apischai sheyesh lo betzidoi, even though there is a doorway or a window between chatzer A and chatzer B, and on occasion the goy does go into the Yiddish chatzer through that opening, still less lan ba. We don't worry about that. We don't consider that a connection. We don't then consider the guy to be a resident of the Yiddish Chatzer. Okay, Sif Cotton, Sif Dalet in the Mechaber. Ha-soicher mina eina Yehudi stam. If somebody does be maskir rishus, he rents the rights of the Chatzer from the non-Jew, and he does it stam. He does it without getting into any detail. He just goes over to the non-Jew and he says, look, I got a technicality. I have to rent your rishus. I have to rent your ownership in the chutzner from you. I'll give you a quarter. Do you mind? The guy says, no problem. He takes the quarter and he goes. So hasoichim and eina yudi stam moyel. That's effective. It's good enough. Ve'ein tzarich lefarish loishu lahater atiltel. The Yid does not have to go over to the guy and start getting into a lengthy conversation with the guy and tell the guy, listen, it's my Sabbath. In order for me to be able to carry, the wires and the strings, there's another detail. You see, you have rights in the yard, and that's a problem for me. I have to rent your rights. You don't have to go into any detail. You just go over to the non-Jew and you say, listen, I have a Jewish law issue. I have to rent your rights in the chutzner. Here's a quarter. Rent me your rights in the chutzner. You don't have to explain to him that there's a halachic issue over here, and you need to do this so that you should be allowed to carry a lawn chair from your house to the yard. And furthermore, you don't have to write up any documents. Basically, there's a machlekes in the Gemara, Rav Chista and Rav Sheshes. Do you need a schira berurah, a schira bari? Do you need a very solid rental, or is it enough with a schiras re'uah? Is it enough to have a weak rental? And we paskin that a schiras re'uah, a weak rental is fine. Says the Mishnah Berurah, is cut and chaf. Vein tzarich lichtayv, you don't have to write a document. The dai b'schiras chalusha, it's enough to have, so to speak, a weak rental agreement. V'loy be'inan schiras beriah. We don't need a solid, complicated rental agreement over here. We just need a technical formality. We need a rental agreement of any kind. Seif, says the Mechaber, Seichrin me'ena Yehudi, you could be Seicher Rishus from a non-Jew, Afilu b'pachas mishava pruta, even for a minute amount of money, even for less than a shava pruta. Umutar liskar mimenu b'Shabbos, and you could make this rental agreement on Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ais Kat and Hey, Afilu b'pachas mishava pruta. You could even do this for a minute amount of money. Hatam, the reason why it's effective, even though normally we don't see a financial arrangement as being considered a real transaction. We don't consider a transaction to be a significant transaction if it involves amount of money that's less than a shava pruta. But over here, less than a shava pruta is okay. The lagabe akom chashiv mamoin, because by a non-Jew, even less than a shava pruta is considered a significant amount of money. The ben noyach nerag afilu b'pachas mishava pruta. There are times that a non-Jew can get capital punishment even for less than a shava pruta. V'hamevin yavin aval mi Yisrael, but from a yid em yirtza liskar mimenu rishusai. If you want to be maskir rishus from a Jew, if you remember earlier on in Siman Shin Pei, we had a machlokes. When we have an issue where we need one Jew to be mavatal rishus, to give up his rishus to other Yidden, right? We had a chutzner with 20 Jewish residents in it, 19 joined in an Eruv Chatzeros, one neglected to join the Eruv. What do? We said that unit number 20 who didn't join the Eruv, he could be mavatal rishus. He could remove himself from the chutzner by being mavatal his rishus to the other 19. We had a discussion over there in Shin Pei. How about if he doesn't want to be mavatal rishus? Instead, he says, listen, I'm not going to give up my rishus for nothing. You want my rishus? Pay me $1. So we had a machlokes over there whether or not schirus works by a Jew, or maybe schirus only works by an Eino Yehudi. Over here, it says, I lost the place, 1 second. Avol mi Yisrael. if you're being, according to the Shita, that you could be maskir rishus from a Yid, if you want to be maskir rishus from a Jew, there you have to give the Yid at least a shava pruta, even according to the more lenient opinions in Siman Shin Pei, who hold that Schiris works by a Yehudi, that it works by a Jew. Over there you have to use at least a shava pruta. Then the Mechaber said you could be maskir rishus on Shabbos. It's cut in Chav Beis. But Shabbos, it works on Shabbos. She'enoi schirus vadois. The reason why you could be maskir rishus from a non-Jew even on Shabbos is because it's not a real zechirus. So it doesn't look like mekach memkar. It doesn't look like you're doing business on Shabbos. If it was a schirus vadois, it would be also because of mekach memkar. Ela kebitl rishus v'heker ba'alma. All it is that you're somehow pushing the guy out. You're getting rid of his rishus over the chotzer as a formality, as a heker, as a sign, as a reminder that there's an issue of a ruvei chatzeros over here. Umavor ba'paiskim the noisan like dvar meichel. You could even do this with food. You could give him a pickle. I call davar amutal a taltal, or anything else that you could move, any other movable object. You got to be maskir rishus from him. So you could give him a hot dog, or you could go ahead and you have a ball in the yard of the bungalow colony. You can give him a ball. And you say to the non-Jew, I'm giving you this in return for your authority over the chotzer. But you can't do it with money on Shabbos because money is muktzah. Vayin Siman Shin Pei Gimel to erev nisbatel utzvika levatel rishusam legabe echad ayin sham. You could also wind up with a problem where you made an erev on Shabbos. Let's say you had a non-Jewish resident in the chotzer together with 20 other Jewish residents. So the non-Jew is an issue, but at the outset of Shabbos, you didn't think that the non-Jew was a problem, because at the outset of Shabbos, the non-Jew wasn't here. So you thought the non-Jew is going away for Shabbos. Now the non-Jew came back, so he could be mevatel your erev. You thought the non-Jew was a non-entity, so you made it a ruvei chatzeros together with the other Yidden. Now the non-Jew showed up on Shabbos. Now you have a problem. In that case, so what's the eitzah? So by you 19 Yiddish residents, you would all have to be mevatel rishus to one. And now at least that one guy would be mutter to be metaltel from his house to the chotzer, and vice versa. This is where we're going to stop for today. Mr. Hashem, tomorrow we'll pick up from the bottom line, from Sivav. I'm happy I was able to do a share today, even though I spent most of my day in the car. I hope you'll apologize for the... I apologize. I hope you'll forgive me for the abbreviated share. If you can, I would ask you to spend some time using the rest of the time that we would normally be learning together to chazer. That way we don't lose minutes of Talmud Torah D'Rabbim. Be well. I'll see you virtually, Mr. Hashem, tomorrow.